In the first two videos, the focus was mostly to ensure that we had a good base of our values by looking at the shapes in the reference photo and comparing it against the value scale. This isn't always the most exciting part, but I find this step really helpful to see if there are any issues with the proportions or any areas that need to be adjusted before we start adding the details. So now, in this video, we are getting into the light areas, which will really make the painting start to pop. And as we start getting into more detail, I'll be discussing my process to create more of a painterly look while still adding detail to bring out Bella's personality. So as we're working in the light area, I was gonna go straight in with a white pastel stick, but I decided to build up the fur. So I've started with a really sharp white charcoal, or you could use a white pastel pencil. And I'm working in the direction of the fur. And there's things, I don't want to get all the fur, but just kind of represent the fur. So I'm going to pick certain places to work. And I really love the top of Bella's head where there's some wisps going off to the left. And then there's a bit of a whiter chunk kind of going a little bit over to the right. And I think that really adds to her personality. So I really wanted to work that. And so what I want to do is work in between a black pencil and a white pencil just to soften those edges to make it feel like the fur's going in. So I might work up the dark pastel and then go back in over it with a bit of the white to try to get a bit of that contrast going, show that there's little bits of the fur there, get the wisps right. So I'm probably going to spend a little bit more time just at the top getting that right. And then where it gets really white, we won't put as much detail in because that's such a bright white. I don't think we need to put bits of fur if we're going to capture it in other areas. And if you notice with my pencil, I put some strokes down and then you might see me slightly rotate the pencil. The reason I'm doing that is we're working on a sanded paper, so it really can wear down that sharp edge. And to help prevent having to sharpen it all the time, if you go through some strokes, you rotate it a little bit, some more strokes, rotate it. It really helps keep that edge quite sharp. So that will prevent some of the sharpening, which can definitely help save some time. And as we know, sharpening those pencils can be a bit of a pain because they break in the sharpeners. So this is a great way to preserve your edge. As we start working down into the light area between Bella's eyes, it is in a little bit more shadow. So again, just keep it light. Even though even the stuff I just did, it is light coverage, we'll go in and make it a little bit darker, just again, working up those values. And so going between her eyes, and then just keep doing the little wisps of fur, keeping it light. And then I'm going to start going around all of her spots. I just keep going around to her reference photo. So just take your time, see the shapes, see where there are little bit of wisps of fur, And then as you're working down around the bottom of the snout, just get that shape correct. And then where you're going against the spots around where the nose is, just put little wisps of fur. If you go too white, we can always blend that back. You'll see me just going and blending. And then if you do need to reinforce with some of the darks, we can go back with some of the blacks. So just take your time. We're just putting a really light coat on. We'll build up the other whites a bit later. So just watch where the markings are and take your time. Now that I've got a good base of the white charcoal or pastel in the white areas, I want to really reinforce some of the white to add a bit more of the dimension and bring out some of the highlights in the lighted areas. So I've using a pastel stick. This does put on a lot more white, and this is where you can get a bit more of a painterly feel by the strokes that you're putting in. I still kind of go in the direction of the fur, but my strokes are a bit more fun and loose. And so I'm just trying to build up those white areas, which a lot of it is that left side of the snout and then at the top of the head. And so this is where you can be as loose as you want. You could do bold strokes. You could keep it fairly tight with a pencil, or you can just go in like I'm going in and just being a little bit more loose and having a little bit more fun with it. I just want to work up a little bit of the values and double check some of the spots around the snout area. So I'm just going to use my charcoal pencil, kind of a bit more redefine some of the spots that maybe got a little bit lost or just need to be built up in value. A little bit more on the nose, and then again, just keep doing it as if it's little bits of fur in the snout area, maybe blend some of it together, just trying to keep it nice and soft right there. Now that we've got our whites established, the darks aren't looking as dark. So I just wanted to reestablish those. So I'm using a pastel stick. I know it's a lot of kind of back and forth, but once you change one value, sometimes it changes the values other places. And that's just normal going back and forth. I'm also just going to pull up maybe a few little highlights. And if you look by Bella's, the left eye there, right where the ear and the skull kind of meet, there's just a little hint of a white or a light area. And I'm going to put that in. Sometimes when you have a big mass of one value, like it is around her face, it can be a little bit bold and your eyes might go there. And so it's nice to add that little tiny touch of adding a little bit of interest into there and to break up that shape so that's not where your eye first goes to see. And so you could do that either by taking a gray pencil if you want, or you could take the eraser, the hard one that I've been using. I do that with some of the highlights, and I'll be doing that with some of those in the next video. You can pull back that purple undertone that we put in there. It's not super noticeable, but it's just enough to just add a little bit of interest. So either way of whichever one you would like to do. So onto the chest area, this will be a lot more loose, but we do still need to have some rhythm to it. So again, we're just going to concentrate on the values, like the left side of Bella is quite white. Into the middle, it moves to a darker value, and then over to the right, just a little bit of a lighter value there. So we want to just analyze the direction of the fur. She's got a few black spots on the left side, so we want to work some of that in. We do want to start putting in a bit of squiggles and a little bit more abstract shapes into there. So we will work on it a little bit more, but this is a great study. And then this way we've got pastel all over her now. So now we can really see how all the values are working together, where we need to darken stuff, where we need to make things lighter. But until we had pastel on all of her, we couldn't fully see it. So this is great. Take a break after this before the next video, which we get to start on all the lovely details and have a lot of fun.